Hello, everyone. Today, we're going to be talking about a pricing strategy. In the last couple of weeks, some of our live mastermind guests have commented on how difficult it can be to price their product or service and how often it can feel like you're not actually making a profit. Does that feel like you? So having the right pricing structure in your business affects the profitability and performance, impacting every area of your business. So the wrong pricing structure will affect every area within your business. I mean, I have to say that again because that's huge. So if you just wing it, you're not going to get it right, and you're going to be setting yourself up for failure, not for success. So you not only should be covering your overheads, but you need to turn a profit. And we know how enjoyable it was for Mrs. Red when she finally worked out that we had incorporated a wage into her pricing strategy. So she actually made money after she held one of her events, or 2 or 3 of her events now. So whereas previously that had never been considered. So I wanted to share this notable example with you, and that is that in Australia, due to COVID, we saw the collapse of many construction companies. The cost of key building materials was lifted by more than 40% in 1 year, which meant those businesses who had a small profit margin or who didn't accommodate for the price increase and carried on charging what they were charging, or didn't price themselves accordingly, they have not survived. And in fact, they are still not surviving. And we're seeing a massive closure in the construction industry due to that happening. Because even though they should have been so busy, they have been so busy. It's been a swamped time of the year where they've been building. Just the fact that they didn't put up their costs, they didn't put up their pricing based on their costs, means their businesses are going to shut down. I mean, that is just, if it's happening for the big guys, think about the little guys like us, right? So it is imperative that time and precision is taken into evaluating the true costs in your business, even the smallest variation. So if you wing it and you go, oh, it should be $1, but it's actually $2, that small variation when you're selling 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 things, it's going to catch up with you at some point. Even the small variations can ultimately make or break your success. And for those of you who are using accounting software like Xero, it can be easier to evaluate. But many small business owners are not yet in a position or aren't using bookkeeping software. So this is why today I'm going to go through this exercise, because for me, I can just log into my Xero. I can have a look at my operating expenses. I can have a look at how much it cost me in the last year, and I can review or make some decisions based on those figures. But for businesses who don't do that, these are some of the things that you need to consider in your pricing strategy. So according to Profit First, operating expenses should be 30% of your income. Okay, so you need to look at your income, say for the last year, or even now you can do for the last 6 months, the last financial year, and go, right, the last 6 months, my income was this, my operating expenses should only be 30% of that. Okay, that's going to be a big eye opener for you. Number 2, your selling price needs to be able to keep you in business. So if everything else is going up and you haven't put your prices up, are you going to be profitable? Your prices need to keep you in business. Most of you know that I recently had to put up my prices. I haven't done it in 3 years. All my software went up. All my staffing went up. And I couldn't understand why I wasn't making any money, because my income was still huge, but my expenses were huger. So my prices needed to go up. Number 3, if your products are set too high in price, potential customers may not buy from you. So you need to consider that as well. Number 4, the average gross profit margin is 50%, but it is different for different industries. And at the end of the day, whatever the profit margin is, it still needs to be right for your business, for you as the business owner and for your customers as well. Number 5, make informed decisions per individual unit when pricing. So for example, Leah and Alison, Leah with her candles, Alison with her jewelry or her essences. You're not going to go, all of this costs me this much, all of it costs me this much. You have to do it per individual item, which is a pain in the rear end, but you have to do it per individual item. And Shopify has got a great free resource that I ran into, and I'm simply going to give you their resource because you can download it for free into your Google Drive. Actually, I'm not going to say the word download because the word they use is make a copy. So when you open it up, make a copy and save it to your Google Drive, and you can use that free resource. And the last one, number 6, competitors analysis to determine what market price is, because you can price yourself in or out by being too cheap or by being too expensive. So those are the 6 of the most important things that you need to consider. Let's talk about true costing for a while. True costing, okay, variable costs. And let me put the disclaimer in here. This is me. This is my research. This is me winging it as a business owner over the last how many years. Please consult an accountant or a bookkeeper and a specialist and take what I say with a grain of salt. So, true costings. So variable costs are things that are variable. They change all the time. Okay. So there might be the costs of your goods. So for example, Leah might buy wicks for her candles, and this week her wicks might cost her this much. Next week they've got a Black Friday sale and the wicks cost her that much. Variable prices. Hey, Daryl. Production time. For Alison, it might take Alison 1 hour to make the one essence, but it may take her 2 hours to make the other essence. Packaging. For packaging, you might have a candle that's this big, and then you might have a candle that's this big for the packaging. Promotional materials. So for example, maybe you want coupon codes, maybe you want little leave a review cards. They all incur a cost. Shipping may be a variable cost dependent on the size of what you're shipping or the location. Affiliate commissions or influencers. So for example, someone like Tara who has influencers, if they are taking commission, perhaps they're on different percentages. Production supplies. So how much does it cost for you to actually have, I don't know, the tools or the things to make those things? So for example, like Jane, the production cost might be even the video, the recording camera that she might use to record herself for her YouTube videos. Payment fees. So depending on whether or not it's PayPal, Stripe, Square, they've all got different percentages. Admin costs, if they are variable or they might be fixed. Education, maybe you go and do a course. Uniform, if you wear them. Running events, travel, entertainment, and even sending somebody like annual gifts. That's going to be a variable cost that has to be taken into account when determining your price. Now, fixed costs could include things like storing your product, rent, insurance, your accountant, your bookkeeper. My accountant and bookkeeper are fixed costs, but yours might be variable. They might charge you by the hour. So then there might be variable. So think about where they sit. Your Wi-Fi, my Wi-Fi is fixed. So I've put it in the fixed category. My mobile's fixed. So it's in the fixed category. But if yours isn't, then it would be in the variable. Wages, depending on whether or not it's fixed or variable. Other fixed costs might be your Canva Pro per year. Maybe your email platform, like I use ActiveCampaign. So I've got to pay for that monthly. Your website hosting is annual or monthly, paying for your domains, which would be annual, things like Zapier, maybe you use Jotform, your utility bills, maybe electricity, water, any outstanding loans you have for the business, any licenses or registrations that you may need for your business, and even your Xero or any other software. So you need to actually go and have a look at all your expenses and decide, is this a variable expense? Or is this a fixed expense? Okay, variable and fixed. And as I said, the Shopify tool is pretty cool. So Cost plus pricing is one of the simplest ways to go to pricing your product. Okay. Basically, you add up all your costs, which include your variable and your fixed. Then you add a percentage profit margin. So this is where sometimes it can get a bit tricky because someone goes, oh, you know, it's about 200% on this item. It's about 50% on that item. It's about this much on that item, this much on that item. This is where it can get really confusing. And you're probably best to talk to your bookkeeper on how to better manage that. So your cost plus your profit margin equals your selling price. You can also decide on whether or not you want to do it on a project base. So for example, I think the way that we work with Jane with her paint and sip was on a project base. We worked out the entire project of running that paint and sip, how much it cost, the variable and fixed cost, including the wages, and then how much that project was going to be so that we could price it so that we had enough bums on seat to be able to cover it and know that we were turning a profit. So to determine what your hourly rate is, you need to work out what you want to make per year. So for those who are in the product-based industry, I will give you an example of that at the end. But for those of you in the service-based, if you want to work out how to charge, you need to have a look at this exercise over here on how to work out your hourly rate. Basically, you need to work out how many hours a year you want to work. So there are approximately 2,000 work hours in a year. You might decide, so for example, someone like Alison, she only works on her business 2 days a week. 3 days a week? Yeah, thank you. So 3 days a week. So this is why this type of thing, you've got to do it correctly, right? Because else that would have been completely wrong for her if we worked out 2,000 hours a year. So she's got to work on their 3 days a week over 52 weeks. Maybe you're taking 6 weeks holiday in the year. So you need to work out how many hours per year you want to work. But for this case, if you want to make $100,000 a year and you're prepared to work 2,000 hours per year, that is $50 per hour. But as a small business owner, you actually work around 50% less billable hours because we don't show up and work and earn. If we're working 9 to 5, how much of those are actually billable hours? So this over here says only 50% of those are actually billable hours because the rest of the time you spent looking for and managing customers along with running the business, things like networking, okay? Therefore, it means you've got to double it. So in this example, to make $100,000 a year, if you were working 2,000 hours a year, you would class yourself as $100 per hour, okay? But you would have to work those 2,000 hours per year. So to calculate your break-even point, you can use the above information with the fixed and variable things within your business. And I will post a link to Shopify's calculator, which is called How to Price Your Product on Shopify. So this is the example for the product-based businesses, okay? Remember we said we talk about doing it per unit. So if Mary sells pots and Mary wants to price her green pot, she looks at her true cost, so her variable and her fixed, which is going to, in this example, I'm excluding taxes and wages, and I'll tell you why later. So her true cost, so our variable and fixed, excluding taxes and wages, is $15, her true cost. Her profit margin is 100%. Her selling price is then going to be $30. Mary wants her wage to be $50,000 per year. How many of you are going, oh my gosh, I'm in maths class again. This is ridiculous. That's why I posted it straight away in the VIP group for you, for those of you who are live. But for the rest of you, you can check it out in chantalgerardy.com.au on the blog. So Mary wants her wage to be $50,000 per year. According to Profit First, her wage should be 50% of her income. So her income should be $100,000. So therefore, Mary must sell $3,333 in green pots per year, which is 64 pots per week. Okay. That means she'll bring in $1,920 income per week. It means her wage would be 50% of that, because according to Profit First, your wage should be 50% of your income. So her wage would be $960 per week. If you go into the VIP group, for those of you who are feeling a bit lost, it is spelt out there. And if you read it carefully like a problem in maths class, it will make sense to you. So 30% of her income is for operating expenses, which is $576, which means that if she sells 64 pots in a week, she's paying herself $960. She has an extra $960, but $576 of that has to go into operating expenses to pay for the expenses, and 15% of that has to go to tax, so $288. Now, where do we go wrong in this exercise as small business owners? The income comes in. You see the full $1,920 income come in and you go, yes, I sold 64 pots. I've got $1,920 in my account. But you forget that you've got operating expenses and tax to pay. Okay. So not putting aside tax or GST, not putting aside operating expenses each week, not putting aside for savings for the unexpected. Spending before having the income. Yes, I've got $1,920 because I sold 64 pots. I'm going to go reward myself and I'm going to take all my mates out for cocktails and spend $800 doing that, when that money isn't yours. So put your wage and your income separately. Spending outside of the budget and not looking or understanding or knowing your figures. Hey, Kim, thanks for joining us. You're coming in right at the tail end, dear, but that's okay. You can go back and watch the recording. So I'll leave it there. And as I said, it's probably a lot easier for you to go and read it out, because it does look like a maths problem. But the best thing for you to do is to substitute your figures into it. So an exercise I used to do when I had my personal training business 20 years ago, I would go in and on a Sunday, I did it, and I'd look for the previous week and go all money that came to me in that week. And I wrote it down just in an old school diary, wrote the money of all the sales that came down each day, totaled them up on the Sunday, then look at the operating expenses for the whole year and allocate for it weekly, which should be 30% of that weekly. And put your wage into a separate account. Because believe it or not, when you're starting out, you're going to have to loan the business some money. I've loaned the business money many a times. There's been $1,000 sitting in my salary account and the business needs something. I loan it to the company has to pay it back. I don't loan it to the company and the company keeps it, because I'm not running a profitable business. I'm setting myself up for failure, not for success. So we have to be, if you want to be a business owner, own your business. I say it all the time. So we'll say goodbye to our recording audience and then go to questions.